My name is Lenka, and you will later hear from my colleague Jenny. We are both horticulture advisors for the Royal Horticultural Society. Just in case you didn't know what the Royal Horticultural Society is about, it's a gardening charity. We have 5 gardens and over 600,000 members. We both work for the advice department. We offer face-to-face advice to the members as well on the phone and via online queries where the members can send it. But we also cater for the more wider audience, for the general public. We write for the websites, give advice at our shows. You probably heard about the Chelsea show, which is the rather to say most famous gardening show. So just by the need for the research, because we get as well lots of queries from our members, from amateurs as well as professional. So about what is the alternative to box? Because many, especially private gardeners, they don't want to continue with spraying, so either with garden pesticides or even biological controls. So just they wanted something that they can just plant and clip ideally just once a year. On the top of it, in the UK, the amateurs got limited availability to biological controls. They do not have access to Bacillus thuringiensis, which is very effective against bugs, which makes the control a bit trickier. So just when we were looking at the alternatives, so just we couldn't quite say we can advise it with entire confidence, because we didn't, nobody really researched about the response to the hardiness even within UK, though we've got milder climate than Germany and Sweden. So the climatic differences between the north and south and in the towns is quite reasonably big. So just some of the plants which do in one climate may not do with others. We wanted to see how adventurous people are with box alternatives, because though obviously it's not as costly as in public gardens, even also on domestic scale, so we're replacing entire box hedging and topiary can be quite costly exercise, and so that people are a bit scared to try something which was not properly tested. So we wanted to update our information on website, so we can people can find our findings and make more informed decision which type of box replacement they would choose. So, and as we look, this similar work, as far as we know, hasn't been carried out. There'll be lots of research from other box alternatives. So just it's not all bad for box as we had before. So just from our research, for example, the National Trust Gardens, National Trust, so looks after about 118 parks and gardens. So, and from our research, it turned out that 1/3 of the gardens do not actually have problem with box blight or box tree moth. So, and there is a lot of research in the new, we had in the new box cultivars and biological controls. Actually, the RHS is part of taking part in a international research about the box, and they will be surveying the box for natural enemies, and is part of the project. So this particular pictures is actually from a small public garden near where we live, and as you can see, the box looks actually quite good. Just wanted to say, just the RHS has got actually the box tree survey where the members could actually record their findings. When they found the box, they put their postcode on and say if they've seen the caterpillar, the moth, and it gets recorded, and after it can be seen by everybody. So some of it is perhaps not 100% accurate because it's a citizen science, and sometimes people mistake the mox tree moth itself. So therefore, for other moths they will find in the traps or in their gardens. And as my colleague will now take over, because I started originally the project, but I've been on a secondment with a different department. So Jenny continued with the project. Jenny, over to you.
So we had this great challenge to come up with what people would want out of an alternative, and this is kind of the list that we came up with, which of course Box fulfills. So obviously it has to be clippable and low maintenance, and there are also sort of less immediately thought of things, such as being able to be sold bare rooted. You know, how do things react to being transplanted? Being well covered right from the base. It really is an extremely big ask to be able to replace Box, and I know that Chris wouldn't. And historic landscapes obviously are continuing to persist. Also, as Lenka said, we wanted to look at reflecting regional growing conditions and hope that people would come to us with what's doing well in their area. Next slide, Lenka. Thank you. So it wasn't just a single survey that helped us glean some information. We sent out a survey with lists of plants for professionals to tick, to give their feedback on things that they had tried, which is it's easier from a survey point of view to present a list. And they also gave us feedback like the National Trust, English Heritage, obviously plant networks, Professional Gardeners Guild, and people sent their responses by email, sometimes instead of sending back the survey, which has been very, very helpful. We also sent out a public survey, as you may know, which was a lot more just tell us your freestyle text box mode, what you're planting and how it's doing. So that is currently in train, and it will continue. It will continue for a while because the issue isn't really going away. So that's been open for a month or so, maybe, yeah, probably 6 weeks. And that's proving to be quite interesting. We also have been speaking to our trials committee. We have a huge range of trials at Wisley, which gives us our award of garden merit. Plants that win award of garden merits have been trialed, and they're judged by these committees. So the Woody Trials Committee has given us some feedback too. And we've also been looking at a demonstration garden within Wisley, where since 2016, we've had a range of shrubs planted there, and just to see how they do over time. And we set up a ballot, a simple ballot, for visitors to come by and just pop their choice of plant into a ballot box, just written on a piece of paper. And also the expertise of the horticultural advisors, the garden staff, and also what, of course, through the advisors, what we've gained from people sending in their inquiries and them complaining about certain plants not working when they've used them as box alternatives. So these are some interesting pictures of plants that we have or have had in the wall garden. And as you see, they're very, very brightly coloured. And these were taken a while ago, as you can imagine. And the winner was Berberis. So it's deciduous, but it had lovely autumn colour. People really, really loved it. And Pittosporums were top notch. They came second. And Podocarpus was very popular as well. But I think what I really wanted to bring out here, as you can see in the photos, is that people, the public, don't necessarily have to have a lookalike of Box. They're very drawn by bright colours, and these things did look very, very, very impressive in our garden, the golds, etc. So that was just one little input. These were the survey questions that went out and are going out to the general public. which just get to the nub. They get to the core of what we would like to know. So there's some basic questions there. Okay, and then it continued. We particularly wanted to know about Ilex crenata, because we've had some very, very mixed feedback on it, and we wanted to look into it a little bit more. We actually wanted to get a picture of regionality, as which parts of the country find that it is less or more successful, which has been, we're still building up a picture on that, and we just wanted to hear their general comments. I wanted to look in a little bit more detail about Ilex crenata to give you some quotes of the feedback, which really tell it all, or not all, because it is possible to grow it, as we've heard. But it seems to, I think my favourite comment here is, I was an Ilex crenata fan, but it has too narrow a happy zone between drought and winter wet. So we have had some positives, but I'm afraid far too many of the negatives. The science behind it is, as you see here, these comments, these bullet points are taken from our pathology department in their responses to people sending in samples of material and photographs to our advisory service. It's a service that we provide where we can analyse roots. So the black root rot is to blame. Obviously, waterlogging is going to be the main thing that contributes to that. But as we heard earlier, the acidity of the soil is quite paramount. Ilex just doesn't really like any alkaline conditions. So you see at the bottom there, we've got the full range of the wish list for a good Ilex crenata hedge. And I would like to know from people that grow it well, where they've tried to adjust the acidity of the soil, as you guys have done, as we heard earlier, how long that effect lasts for. That interests me. I'd like to hear. So this is a little look into what people have proffered as their favoured alternatives. As you can see, number 2 has been a pittosporum, and you can see how that's done in our wall garden recently. There are some carokias in there as well, but that's mainly pittosporum. And so they did their voting prior to our very cold weather, which we've just had. That went down to -10 for about 2 nights in our wall garden. So that will be changing people's views. Other areas of the garden were untouched. Their pittosporums at Wisley were untouched. So it is a microclimate there, but it will have an influence on how people view this particular plant, I'm sure, and it's quite timely, I think. So Ilex green hedge has come up as very popular. Now, just because people have voted for it doesn't mean they like it. It means that that's what they plumped for. That's what they decided to put in, probably based on what was recommended in the previous few years. So they are discovering that it's not what it was cracked up to be, basically. So unfortunately, the survey doesn't really give a full picture, because a high count, a high frequency, doesn't mean that it's being a star performer. U was also coming up quite high. In our garden, framing this wall garden here, you can see U, and it's a particular variety called Rapandans, which is more widespreading and slightly lower growing. It starts off a little bit loose, but it is clipping quite well, and that's been there since 2016. I have received some quite nice feedback from people in the Professional Gardeners Guild, and this was one of them. This is using this basic Taxus baccata. And the reason that I've included this slide, because that in itself is not exactly revelatory, but I was interested to read about the spade being run along the back border to restrict the roots, which you might think is pretty drastic. but apparently it's been working well for the past 9 years. So I thought that looked rather lovely, and they've got a wet soil and seems to be working for them. So a nice one to include. And here we have some plants that have been doing well in our wall garden. We did get votes for these, but they weren't top of the pops. But these are very hopeful ones that may well be popularized in the future somehow. I would hope that they will become more popular. The podocarpus had some quite good voting. It clips neatly, takes a while to establish, but after 3 or 4 years, I think this is about the third year, it is getting quite a nice tight shape. Obviously, with the rhododendron, you've got some flowers as well. It tolerates a slightly more alkaline soil. It's being an Encaro type. So that's responding really well to being pruned and is quite widely available now. Ligustrum sunshine, so a bit of sunshine in your life. With this one, it's tolerated the cold weather really well, but it does like partial shade, because you can get a little bit of sun scorch on that, but it's clipping rather nicely, and it's been there for 5 years or so now. There are probably about 6 or 7 different types of podocarpus which colour up in different ways. In the winter as well, you get various sort of purples and reds on the winter colour. This one's obviously very green. We also had a really interesting input from one of the gardens responding, just basic privet, because the site was so challenging. It was waterlogged and shady, and this is a 60 centimetre hedge, and I think it works quite well until they can find anything more inspiring. And here you see a close-up of the Rapandans working nicely in our wall garden. So I think I'm handing back to Lenka now to wrap things up a little bit and give you a couple of other further ideas.
Yes, I always like to look for something a little bit more unusual, which perhaps more private gardeners so they can try out and think more about before it can be perhaps more widely used. So just you can see the Osmanthus burkwoodia just is really nicely cloud prune. Looks well, has been done like that for now a number of years. Is actually in the RHS garden Wisley near the glass houses if you happen to be visiting. Like the bonus of the flowers, because despite of even fairly tight clipping, it will still produce flowers, which is nice for the biodiversity. So a little bit of a sort of like a wild card, so that perhaps not suitable for the German climate, or definitely not Swedish climate, is Mesrine africana, is the African boxwood. It looks very, very neat. It's been recommended by famous plantsman Roy Lancaster, and he grows it in his garden in southern England, and it's been used for hedging in Abbotts Bay tropical gardens. It's just a tropical, so that gives it away. It's in the coastal region of the UK in Dorset. So just the old bay tree, the Laurus nobilis, is actually surprisingly versatile. This is from a private garden. They've got a series of about 8 balls and some hedges. Just those balls are clipped to about 1.2 to 1.5 meters. They need one proper clip and several light touches, but you can easily keep it with regular clippings. They're really nice and dense. So they haven't been actually too badly affected by the frost. And believe it or not, is growing in heavy clay, which is not withstanding water, but gets pretty sticky. And this particular garden, most of the hedges are actually bay, just anything from 1.5 meters to nearly 3.5 meters tall, and some growing in quite shady area, just showing. So just the plants can be more versatile than they seem. So others were little very interesting plant is Tilcrium lucidris. It can be grown as low hedging as in the picture. And again, it's a very nice flowering plant. So perhaps for more informal hedging in sunny places and quite well-drained soil. So one of the ones that I actually quite like is the Sarcococca confusa because of its tolerance to shade, but it also can tolerate sunshine because we've got it originally planted, not as a hedge, but as a more or less ground cover. So in a very sunny position, but I've seen a few nice hedges from it and actually planted it at home, and it seemed to be doing quite well. So just some of the understated one, things like the Lonicera nitida and Lonicera pileata can be grown as, you know, fairly dense hedges, but the disadvantage is they need quite frequent clipping, but they are not fussy about the growing conditions. So it would be one to perhaps consider as well. So just this is from me, and maybe Janet'd like to say a few words.
Yeah, so yeah, thank you very much for listening. And just to say, if you have any observations or anything that you'd like to share, you can write to me at the address below and fill out our survey. You can just Google RHS help our research and it'll come up top, and it would be lovely if you filled that out. Thank you very much indeed for listening.